Welcome back to the Kirk Miller Podcast. Today I have a brilliant business strategist and performance coach, and that is Mr. Will Polston. Will, thank you for joining me on the Kirk Miller Podcast today.
Thank you for having me.
Am I right in saying as well, you're also a best-selling author of this book? For those who are listening to this now, I've got a book in front of me. It's called North Star Thinking, which is your mission. Would that be fair to say right now?
Yeah.
Just shooting from the hip to kick us off, for those who don't know who you are or know what North Star Thinking is, what is North Star Thinking?
So I believe that having a mission in life, a life mission that is the equivalent of trying to empty the sea with a spoon, something you can never actually achieve, if it's aligned appropriately, can bring you more growth, more fulfillment, more contribution than any other endeavor. And that's what I refer to as a North Star. So essentially it's a life mission that you pursue and continue to focus on. It's something that when you live it, it energizes you, it infuses you, and you can align essentially your whole life and business around it.
So you said that with so much passion, so much certainty. Right. And what age are you now, Will?
I'm 36.
36. But I'm guessing life didn't start out that way. You don't, when you're a young kid and a teenager, you don't exactly know what North Star Thinking is. So
definitely not. Yeah. So to sort of kind of go back, so I had an amazing childhood. You know, I'm very fortunate. I've got mum and dad, two sisters, brother. But one of the things that I remember growing up was how much my dad hated his job.
What did he do?
He worked in IT. He was head of IT for a stock brokerage in London, and he would leave the house at 5 o'clock in the morning, get home at 7, 8 o'clock at night, and he would bring the stress and frustration of work home with him. So I don't know if you or anyone listening to this can relate to this, but there's certain people when they walk into an environment, they just bring a tension, and he was that guy that brought that tension. Anyway, fast forward a few years, one of the things that I remember coming home was my dad was at home and he had quit his job to set up a business with one of my uncles. Now, I've got two very wealthy uncles. One's a billionaire, the other one's a multi-millionaire. And Dad always used to say they just got lucky, right? That was his excuse. They just got lucky. Again, fast forward a little bit. He'd quit his job. At this time, I'm the eldest of four. I'm about 10 years old. And my dad, the business he was going to go in with my uncle didn't happen. And my dad then fell into experiencing what I would deem as experiencing feelings of depression. Slept in a separate room to my mum, curtains shut all day, didn't leave the house, all the stereotypical stuff.
And what age were you at this time?
I'm about 10, 11. And then I remember thinking, God, this isn't it. Come home from school, and he was going to set up a business with one of my uncles. I thought, yes, this is it. Yeah. Dad's going to be just like Uncle Mark, Uncle Steve. That business didn't happen. Going through all of these, experiencing the feelings of depression. And then for me, it just dawned on me, I get it now. Money equals happiness. Uncle Mark, billionaire, really happy. Uncle Steve, multi-millionaire, really happy. Dad, when he worked in London, had money. We had nice things, but we wasn't rolling in it, you know?
Yeah.
And then there was him not leaving the house, no money, mum having to work 2 or 3 different jobs to keep a roof over our head. It was obvious, money equals happiness. So at 11 years old, I had that realisation, and I went off on this tangent to make as much money as I could as early as I could. I was the kid at school buying and selling and ducking and diving. I had 3 different paper rounds at one point, and when I would earn this money, I would buy stuff. And one of the things that I would buy would be clothes. So I remember being like 12 years old, my friends' parents would give them a £5, and that would be money to get a McDonald's and get on the bus up to Chelmsford, which was sort of near where we lived. And I was at 12, 13 years old going up with £200 and buying a new pair of Nike TN trainers, right? That was kind of the level.
What were you doing back then to make
this was it,
quid?
buying and selling stuff. I'd buy stuff out of the paper, sell it on eBay, buy stuff on eBay. I don't know if you remember the Live Strong bands.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was buying them, I think, at the time for like £2. I was selling them for £10. This is over 20 years ago.
Was that just self-taught, or did you watch?
Just realised that I could buy stuff and sell stuff, and I could do it. So,
Yeah.
and I would do arbitrage. I'd look for stuff in the back of the paper and sell it on eBay, and vice versa. And I was doing all this stuff. I remember selling when the Nokia 3210 came out. This gives you away a bit my age a little bit. 3210 was the phone that we had, and you could buy a little sticker that I was selling for I don't know how much. I've completely forgot about this until about 3 years ago. One of my mates told me. But you could buy a sticker that when you were on the phone, it would light up like LEDs. And I used to sell them saying that it'd stop cancer. This was when I was like 12, right? Or 13 years old. And that's what I'd do. But anyway, so did that. And then I eventually, about 14, I got a job in a bar working as a pop boy. I'd work Saturday and Friday nights. They didn't realise I was only 14 at the time, because you're supposed to be 16 to work there. And I was earning money doing that. And then I like buying clothes. So then there's a clothes shop near where I lived, which at the time was the only clothes shop in the world that sold Gucci, Prada, Dolce & Gabbana and Etro, that was in one shop that wasn't in a city. This was before Chelmsford was a city. And I got a job there, and I loved that. I loved being around the nice clothes, the great people doing cool stuff. And my dream was always that I wanted to become a multimillionaire by owning my own clothes shop.
Okay.
That was the thing. You talk about environment dictates performance. I was around all these great people. Anyway, there was this legend in the industry who'd set up his own shop, and short version is that shop failed. And I was at this point 17, 18 years old. I'd been working there 2 years and thought, well, if he can't do it, there's no way I can do it. So I'm going to have to do something else. Well, what else could I do to become a multimillionaire? I was surrounded by multimillionaires every week, every day, coming and buying these clothes. So I whittled my clients down into 4 groups of people. There were professional footballers, and I know you've had your experience of professional footballers. There were professional footballers, property developers, stockbrokers or drug dealers. So I thought I just need to become one of those 4. Well, the first one I ruled out was becoming a professional footballer, because unlike you, Kirk, I'm shit at football. The second one I ruled out was becoming a property developer, because I didn't have the money to develop property. So I was left with 2 options, either go into the world of stockbroking or go and become a drug dealer. And the option I chose was to go into the world of finance and become a broker. Did that and was earning a lot of money, again, quite young. And that was my first introduction to personal development, because what I was doing was I was going and sitting with some of the best people in the office and just learning what were they doing that gave them the edge. And there were some marginal things that I picked up on. And then one day someone introduced me to a book, and the book was a book called The Secret by Rhonda Byrne, all about the law of attraction.
That was my first ever personal development book.
You and I both.
Yes.
And I read that book, and what was interesting, a lot of people when they read that book, they went, oh my God, this is what I could do. That didn't happen for me. What happened to me, I read the book and went, oh my God, this is what I've been doing. I didn't realise that I had been living the law of attraction without even realising. So when I was...
What were you doing exactly? Give us some tangible examples.
Things like, I would see a mini moto, the little mini tiny microscopic motorbikes at 13, 14 years old. I would see it and I'd go, I'm going to get one of them.
Wow.
And then I would just make it happen.
Where do you think that came from?
I think it links back to the situation with Dad and Uncle Mark and Uncle Steve and stuff. So there's definitely an element of that. But I was doing it, and then I realised, well, I wonder what would happen now if I really applied it consciously. Because I'd been doing it unconsciously, but what if I did it consciously? And the more personal development I made, the more personal development I did, the more money I made, and that went on for some years. Until one day, my old boss said, Will, there's this guy coming to London called Tony Robbins. Have you heard of him? And I went, have I heard of him? Yeah, I follow this guy. I find him really interesting. He said, well, let's go to his event. So in May 2013, so 13 years ago, I went to my first Unleash the Power Within event. Yep. And that, Kirk, was where I had what I call my lightning moment. So for anyone that's ever been to a Tony Robbins or not been to a Tony Robbins event, it's this big event, thousands of people, this big 6'6" guy jumping up and down on stage, getting everyone sort of motivated. And it was when he was telling a story, what's known as the Thanksgiving story, that it just bam, hit me.
How and why?
It was the story that he shared about his dad and what happened with his dad, and the whole Thanksgiving story. Go and watch it on YouTube. Just Google Thanksgiving story Tony Robbins and you'll get an insight to it. And I cried my eyes out for 15 minutes, because in that moment, that was the moment I realised my real driver was not about money. It had never really been about money. What it was really about was my dad, and how my dad hadn't achieved certain things he was capable of, the impact that had on him and my mum and me and my family and a whole host of other people. And I vowed in that moment, I don't want anyone else to go through the suffering that he went through and we went through as a result of them not achieving what it is that they're capable of. I know you love helping people feel complete by removing limitations, and for me, I love helping people transform excuses into results and live a life they love by unlocking their next level of potential, performance and purpose. So I set out, I come back from this event and I'm all charged up. I remember going home to my family and literally announcing to them, I'm going to become the world's best life coach. That's what I said at the time. It's not what I meant, but it's what I said. Because what I meant was I wanted to impact people. It wasn't about me being the best. It was about impacting other people. Yeah. But I said that's what I was going to do. And I went online and I registered a company online. And the Monday I went into the NatWest at Fenchurch Street Station and I opened a bank account and then I did nothing.
Why?
Because I said to myself, well, I'll do that when I'm successful. When I've properly made it, then I'll properly start. So that went on. I left the city. I set up a renewable energy business. We grew that from a standing start to 85 staff within 18 months, growing. I'm 25 at this time. We're just getting up to doing £1 million a month. So we're growing quite quickly. This is 11, 12 years ago. And then government change legislation kills that business overnight.
Oh no.
I go away on holiday and I went to a place called Cancun, which, it's a bit of a crazy place. And the crazy story that happened was just before I went, my ex at the time, my partner at the time, was a dental nurse. And she said, you must go and get your teeth cleaned by the hygienist before we go on holiday. So I did what she told me. And the hygienist clipped my gum. It got infected. Short version is, couldn't drink alcohol. This was when I was still drinking alcohol. I mean, I'm going to the land of tequila and I can't drink alcohol. What's going on? So anyway, I go on holiday, fine. One night we go to a place called Coca Bongos, which is this crazy party place. Got midgets swinging from the ceiling. She's throwing back tequila like it's nobody's business. And the next day, she's hungover, head down the toilet. She said, well, I can't go out in the sun today. I said, well, I'm going out in the sun. And I went out in the sun and I had another book with me. It was another book by Rhonda Byrne. And it was a book called The Hero. There's this part of this book, and in the book it says a bit about a guy called Mastin Kipp. And Mastin Kipp had a website called The Daily Love, and one day he used to post motivational quotes on Twitter every day, and one day he gets retweeted by Kim Kardashian. He goes from 1,000 followers to 10,000 followers overnight. I just started crying my eyes out again. Because I thought, well, you idiot. You don't need to wait until you're successful before you've made it. Because
what was your definition of success up to that point?
What was
your belief at that point? Or what was the yardstick you were trying to aim for to be successful, to then do the thing you loved?
Yeah, great question. It was definitely financially linked. Which, look, by most people's standards, I was doing pretty well. I was from my late teens to early 20s, I was earning 20 grand a month, and that was 15 years ago.
Crazy.
So put the context of that. But the whole idea around what I personally thought was definitely linked to money. Yeah, there was definitely a link to money. And
did you know what that number was? Because the reason I asked that, I think this is going to be super, super helpful for so many people. I, like you, work with a lot of people. I'll be happy when I hit that number. I'll be happy when I hit that number. Happy, even our friend Jason Greystone talks about when's enough, especially when you've come from a lack of, or even if you didn't, but you saw what happened with your dad. But so many people don't know what they're aiming for. So did you actually know, like, this is the target, or was it?
Back then, no. Is probably the honest answer. It was probably no. I didn't then, and it's interesting because I call it when-then syndrome. When I achieve this, then I'll be okay. When I get that, then I'll be all right. When I get there, then I'll be content. So no, I didn't really know. But what it did do is it set me off on a trajectory to go, oh, well, you can just start. You can start by posting a quote on social media, and that's literally what I did. I come back from that holiday, I posted a quote on social media every day. At the end of the week, I think, well, you idiot. Some people don't go on social media in the morning, they only go in the afternoon. Post 2 a day. A week after that, I created my own website. A week after that, I posted my first blog. 3 months after that, I had a 10,000 strong social media following. Now, what I will say was that what happened in that time as well, and this is where I think it linked to money, was that I'd been earning a lot of money, spending a lot of money, but then I lost a lot of money. So I had amassed a sizable amount of savings. We're talking a 6-figure amount of savings, and then I lost a lot and some.
How am I?
Trading blew myself up. You know, it was some stupid decisions that I made at the time. I was young. I was earning a lot of money. I was like, that's a few months' money. I'll earn it back. But that didn't quite go to plan. So that was one of the big catalyst moments that then sent me off on the trajectory. And then from that moment on, I've just been obsessed with anything to do with human awareness, human potential, human behavior. What's the difference that makes the difference? What is it that gives people the edge? And what I attempt to do, at the very least, is learn complex elements of psychology and development, and then try and put it in a simple way for people to understand, that ultimately enables them to be able to, in today's day and age, have more time, more fulfillment, and less stress.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So how long has North Star been around, and how did it start?
So I think how it started for me, it linked back to this when-then syndrome. You know, I would constantly set goals and achieve them. So I remember being in my early 20s, I had the watches, the convertible cars, the house with the gated drive, the stuff, right? And it was constantly the stuff. And it was a great motivator for me to have those material things. We'd have the tailor would come in, I'd have custom made suits in my early 20s, but it was always the next thing. I mean, I've got a pilot's license now, but how that even come about was I was one day watching Bloomberg and I saw a microlight. And I thought, that's cool, I'm going to buy a microlight. How much is a microlight? 15 grand. I thought, why would I only buy a microlight for 15? I'll buy a plane. A plane's only 30 grand. I'll buy a plane instead. So there's things that I was constantly looking at, like, what's the next material thing? Only to realise that whilst that's great to have the short-term goal, it doesn't lead to lasting fulfillment. And I know you're huge on 12-week transformations just don't work long-term because people go all in for the thing and then get there and go, right, now what? And often they'll just ricochet back. So how do we create lasting success? How do we create lasting fulfillment? And for me, that comes back to a North Star. So it's very much linked with what I've seen firsthand with clients, what I've seen firsthand myself. And there's a famous story you've probably heard of. It involves a baby born in December a couple of thousand years ago. And there were 3 men, supposedly wise, all carrying gifts. And they went out in search of finding this little baby, and they followed this star. Now, in every version of the story that I've ever heard, those 3 men never actually got to the star. All they did was used it as their guiding light. And that, for me, is essentially what represents the North Star. What's the guiding light? What's the life mission? What's the thing that you can pursue every single day, knowing that every day you're doing it, it's enabling you to grow, it's enabling you to contribute, and it's enabling you to essentially live to your values, which then gives you fulfillment. Yeah.
With that in mind, what do you see as the most common patterns in all the people you've coached and the environments you've been around in successful entrepreneurs who, like you've just shared, got the car, got the watch, got the status? What do you see as the most common patterns or challenges with those people before, say, they embark on this North Star thinking and way of thinking, which will impact?
Yeah, great question. I think probably the biggest one, well, there's 2 that stand out straight away. The first one is that their default mechanism or their default way that's enabled them to achieve an element of success, it's got them to where they are, but it won't get them to where they're going. I call it often the glass ceiling. They've hit the glass ceiling. So if you think of driving a car, you go in first gear, second gear, third gear. A lot of people get stuck in third gear. So they're redlining, and the very thing that's got them to where they are cannot get them past where they are right now. So they have to metaphorically change gear. Now, what does going from gear 3 to down to gear 4 up to gear 5 look like? Well, typically it means doing less. It means focusing on outcomes, not output. That's one of the big things. The other thing that really stands out for me is that they are living to somebody else's ideal, somebody else's idea of success. Every single one of us have got a completely unique set of values. So a value is not the social idealisms that most people think of, like integrity and trust and honesty. A value is a priority that you live by, so it's something that you do. I call them a means value. It's the thing that gives your life meaning. And we've got a range of different values. So we have end values, we have end values that we move towards or away from, we have means values that we pursue, and lots of people are living a life by a set of priorities that are not their own. They've been values that have been injected into them or projected onto them from an authority figure from somewhere in their life. That could be a parent, that could be an old school teacher, it could be an old boss, it could be an old sports coach. And they've never questioned, where has this come from? Is this what I truly want to be living by? So then the question becomes, well, how do I know if I'm living my values or somebody else's?
Yeah, because you took the question out of my mouth, because I was going to ask you, what are the signs that someone is living in accordance to someone else's values and not their own?
Negative emotions. Any negative emotion, I believe, is simply a signal. It's a signal to think or act differently. That's it. So if I'm constantly pursuing something and it doesn't feel right, it feels like I'm constantly going against the grain, that's an indication, again, keyword indication, that it may be the case. So we either need to think differently about it or act differently about it. I've been obsessed with learning for so many years, and I love going right back to ancient wisdom, like the Atlantean mysteries, which basically pretty much every religion we've ever known has been born from, right up to quantum physics and philosophy and everything in between. But one of the psychologists, or two of the very well-known psychologists, are most people will think of as Sigmund Freud is one of the key ones, and then I can't remember the other one. It'll come to me in a minute. But the other form of psychology is what's known as Adlerian psychology, and Adlerian psychology is essentially living aligned to meaning. The Stoics, they spoke about the telos. People like Napoleon Hill called it the chief aim. It's just having something that you can align with. I call it a North Star. And when we align to that, then all of the other elements dissolve, which again, it comes back to essentially values. That's really what it boils down to.
I couldn't agree more. On your emotions, and also your emotional and physical energy, it's going to feel differently. I know we spoke on my podcast, whether it's the body, the car, the watch, that will never feel enough energetically as well as emotionally if you're doing that for other people or other people's values. Because I know you work so in so much detail with clients, because I know I've got some clients that we both work with. Getting more granular on the patterns, because I think it's such an important thing, where we've said about energy and emotions. Would there, from your experience, are there certain times of the day or week that you feel people self-destruct more so when these things happen? Because I see people, especially in the corporate world, or people who are in the thick, they're in a really high-pressured time of their entrepreneurial journey. They're in these patterns and they can't get out of them. And then a limited belief from their side might be, okay, but I've got to provide, I've got to grow, what would be the first thing that they should look at if they're trying to come back to basics with what are my values? If they know they've got friction, their emotions are off, the energy's off, they've got these patterns, but they're still going, well, I need to make money. What would be the first port of call?
So I think there's a lot to be said for outcome thinking. What do I mean by outcome thinking? Outcome thinking is what is actually the outcome that you want. So many of us will have a way of doing something that we've just become accustomed to. So some people, their way of dealing with stress is binge eating. Some people, their way of dealing with stress is binge drinking. Some people, it's going on a huge bender. Some people, it's not eating at all. So people have found their way of doing it. So when we think about, well, what is the outcome that we want? Then we go, okay, well, what are some of the other ways that we could possibly create a way of getting an outcome that's different. So a real practical one that I've been using since I've been doing Built to Last is I enjoy eating, and I have for years had snacks throughout the day. So I have my meals and then I'll have a little snack when I'm on the go. In years gone by, that used to be chocolate bars. And I would have like a Galaxy chocolate bar. Then I upgraded it, to protein bars. Was it better? Depends on who you listen to. And then I thought, well, someone saying, we'll cut out snacks. Well, I want to have a snack. So, okay, well, what else could I do to have a snack? Practical, simple thing would be, well, have a banana, have an apple, have some biltong, you know? So it's if I'm thinking about the outcome, well, what is the outcome I want by not saying, I don't want to feel really hungry. Because for me, if I'm really hungry, I can't be present, I can't be focused. Some people are willing to push through the pain, but I just don't want to feel hungry when I'm trying to do my best work. So that for me is the practical component of, well, what is really the outcome I want? Outcomes thinking, I don't want to feel hungry, I want to feel full, I want to feel present. How else could I possibly do that? And that's when we then start to explore all of the possible ways of doing that, which you would give then the tactical things as well. Increase your protein intake, you won't feel as hungry. Have an apple instead of having a protein bar. And that's an example, is outcome thinking.
No, I get it. And then getting more granular then on this North Star thing, what is the method? Like, for anybody who doesn't know what the North Star method is, someone joins your program, joins your community. What is the process, and what is the method? What are the steps? What's the system?
Practically speaking, the first and foremost piece is identify what is your life mission that we can align to. You know, so what is that? And then there's 5 ways that can be done that I've experienced. And one of the ways that we do that, or one of the ways that people have that, is that they already know it. They already know what it is, and they're already pursuing it. That's one way.
How would they already know it?
Well, you're an example of this.
Okay.
Is that they're already pursuing it. They talk about it with passion. I know your big thing is wanting to make sure you can help people feel complete by removing limitations. How do you know if it's a life mission? Is there isn't a goal. You don't get there. That's why I talk about having a. If someone says to me, my life mission is that I want to be a billionaire. Well, when you get a billionaire, you've done it. You can't achieve a North Star, in my opinion. It's something you constantly pursue. Some people might say to me their North Star is they want to feed a million people. Well, that's not, because if you do it, you've accomplished it. You want to be able to have something you can't accomplish.
Okay. So that in itself, well, sorry to interrupt there because I think it's so powerful. That in itself can reduce so much overwhelm for someone in pursuit of goals, because, and also if you're never going to truly complete that North Star objective, then you've always got something to work towards and grow into, and it takes away that I'll be happy when, if you're never going to actually reach the when.
Exactly that. Now, that said, we do have what I call a North Star trajectory,
okay,
which are milestones.
Yeah.
So we still have milestones. So I've still got things that I want to achieve.
Yeah.
And I put them within a time frame, but I put them within a time frame that I believe is somewhat possible.
Okay.
So that then we can reverse engineer it. So we might have, I've got 50-year goals, 20-year goals, 10-year goals, 3-year goals. So yeah, I still want to pursue those things, but the big difference there is that most high achievers, type A personalities, really driven people, they obsess over the gap. I'm not there yet. I've done this, but I'm not there. I've done all of that, but I'm not here. There's a great book written by Dan Sullivan and Ben Hardy called The Gap and the Gain. Yeah. And focusing on the gain, I'm huge on acknowledging the progress. Yeah. Looking back to see how far you've come is hugely rewarding. And most people that I work with, when they first come to me, they're just constantly obsessed on where they aren't yet, as opposed to acknowledging how far they've come. So that's the component there. Around, and the other 4 ways really quickly of how you identify it is using a concept called an ikigai, which is a Japanese concept. So the word direct translation into English means a reason for being. So what I find fascinating about this particular concept, it's born off a tiny little island off of Japan called Okinawa. Mm-hmm. And where they live by the ikigai, or live by their ikigai, they have more centurions, so more people that have lived to over 100 years old than anywhere else in the world. What is an ikigai? Well, it's, if you imagine a Venn diagram, so sort of 4 circles that overlap in the middle, it's the answer to these 4 questions combined. What do I love? What am I good at? What does the world need? And what can I be paid for?
Okay.
That's what produces the ikigai.
Okay.
So answering those questions, identifying it, that's another way of doing it. Another way of doing it is by identifying your means values. So my 4 highest means values are self-mastery, building businesses, creating relationships, and building wealth. Well, if you look at what I'm doing when I'm living my North Star every day, I'm doing those 4 things combined. Then we have a way of doing it, which is what I call a life audit. So get a piece of paper, draw an x-axis, draw a y-axis, draw your highs and lows, your highest highs and your lowest lows, and then we look for the correlation. It's another way of doing it. And then the final way is by simply asking people, if you had all the money you could ever possibly need, what would you then want to do? And that can help reveal it. So sometimes we can nail it straight away and people know, they have a certainty of knowing it because we've done one of those 5 exercises. Sometimes we do all 5 exercises and then we can reveal it that way. But that's essentially it. So there's that is essentially everything. I think of it like a skeleton. Once we've got the skeleton, we can put the meat.
So that's your foundation for everything.
Foundation, everything hangs off of that.
And then what else is involved in this?
Then time mastery.
Okay.
So I believe that time management doesn't exist. There's no such thing as time management.
Why?
You can't manage time. You've got 24 hours in a day. I've got 24 hours in a day.
Yeah.
You've got 7 days in a week. I've got 7 days in a week.
Okay.
Neither of us can manage time. What we can manage, though, are our priorities.
Okay.
What you decide that goes in your 24 hours in a day, what I decide goes in my 24 hours in a day, comes down to our priorities. So we manage our priorities. So there's a big piece around that. Practically what that looks like, how we redesign, the same way that you would design a week for someone's training and someone's diet based on what they've got going on.
Yeah.
I will design people's week based on where they want to get to in life, personally, professionally, financially. What does the week need to look like for them to be able to get to where they want to get to?
And just unpacking that, if you don't mind, Will, because I think it's a massive problem for a lot of entrepreneurs. What are the most common things you see from people before they've undertook that exercise with you versus afterwards once you've optimized that?
Low value distractions.
Like what?
Anything that isn't enabling them to... So if you don't fill your day or fill your week with high value priorities, your day gets filled with low value distractions.
Why do you think people do that? Is that a procrastination? Is it not knowing what to focus on? Or is it does it come back again to just not being clear with what their values are in the first place?
Personally, I think it's more the latter, but also structure creates efficiency.
Agreed.
So once you have structure, you can be more efficient, and just most people have never taken the time to really review what's really valuable. Now, I want to make this important distinction because I get pushback from people on this. People will say to me, but Will, it's not all about money. I go, okay, I hear you. But it's about high value. High value for you might be playing with your little one. For some people, it's making sure they do every school run and they're at every sports day. That's high value. That is the part, I know you're big on non-negotiables, and it's having what are those non-negotiables that you are willing to do. Well, if you want to make sure that they become non-negotiables in your week, what needs to happen instead? So I have a saying that I say so often. One of my clients bought me a t-shirt that says it, which is, it needs to be done, but I don't need to do it. And just for most people asking themselves, could someone else do this task? Could someone do this? Now, that is an important question, because it's not saying that you have the person on your team to do it. It's not saying that you've got the money to be able to hire the person to do it. It's just saying, could they do it? Well, if the answer is yes, it just opens us up to the possibility that it could be someone else doing it. Another big one that we use is a simple exercise is reviewing a previous week and colour coding it. So for me, I like to keep things simple. Green is if you loved doing the task, it's green. If it was okay, you didn't mind doing it, it was amber.
Yeah.
If you really disliked doing it, it's red.
Yeah.
Now, if I was to say to you, what's the colour of red? You'd say, sorry. If I said to you, what's the colour of danger? You'd say
red.
Right.
Yeah.
Not in this instance. The instance when we do this is that the most dangerous colour for most people is actually orange. Because what's the sound of orange? The sound of orange is meh. It's
Yes,
okay.
so true.
And so many people, their week, 60, 70, 80% of their week is meh.
Yeah.
And that for me is where I think the danger is. So there's a couple of practical things that we can do to understand.
Yeah.
Are people really effectively using their time to
Because
get the most
that can
juice out
affect
of
their
it?
sense of accomplishment and self-worth that then can lead to poor habits and behaviour in so many different means. I think it's brilliant. I think I really think it's brilliant, mate. It's super helpful. When you say coding, forgive me for being so OCD on this, because I think this is super helpful even for me. Do you have a written journal? Is it a compute? Like, is it on your phone? Like, again, how do people do it?
Yeah, great question. So it depends on the individual. So it really depends on the individual. Some people have a digital diary. In today's day and age, a lot of people will have it on their phone or use their laptop. Well, what we can do is go to the previous week, literally take a screenshot and print that. Get a highlighter and just colour it. Was it green? Was it amber? Was it red? And that then gives us an indication. That's just one of the simple ways. I've in the past got people, and I've learnt this the hard way, I'd get people to print something out and track every 15 minutes what they're doing for the previous 15 minutes. It creates so much friction. It's a bit like in your world of saying, I want you to track every single calorie you eat on MyFitnessPal.
It's interesting you said that, Will, because the reason I probe with that, because again, one from a nosy perspective myself, I love having these conversations, but there are so many different planning methods. And I remember Alex Hormozy on Instagram about a week ago saying, track everything the last every 50 minutes. I'll be honest, for me, that would drive me insane. And all of a sudden, I make it a bigger problem. And your self-worth would be through the floor. And also, I wouldn't create any momentum with my output that day.
Exactly. So there's two ways of doing it. Now, if you're someone that the majority of your day, your calendar's completely blank, then that doesn't work as well. Because you go, well, what was I doing?
Yeah.
Now, the other way of doing it is designing what I call the new ideal week. So how do you do the new ideal week? For me, it's a Google sheet, and you then block in what you want to be doing. Then what you can do is you can print that out, and then you go, did I do everything I say I wanted to do? And if I didn't do it, so let's say podcasting. Right? I decided that I want to spend Thursdays podcasting. I can then take that sheet, I can colour code it and go, no, I didn't do that last week. Why didn't I do it? I didn't do it because I had an emergency call with this client. I had a last minute meeting with this person, and then it helped, and then we're doing it retrospectively. So that's another way of doing it without having to track every single 15 minutes. Yeah.
No, I think it's brilliant, because what it does, it draws attention also to your boundaries, and probably people pleasing or saying yes to the wrong things that you should be saying no to. So again, you set the foundation, time. Where do you go from there with North Star thinking?
We've got the North Star, trajectory, we've identified time, and then there's other elements to it. So looking at belief systems, I know you're big on sort of busting beliefs, so looking at things around that. When I'm working with business owners, a huge component around what they're then looking to do is looking at things like morning routines. Are you setting your day up to win? Which kind of comes back to structure. Then there's, from a business perspective, things like scoreboards, accountability charts, making sure that we've got various things in place to do what we want to be doing, and making sure that we're tracking the progress. And then a huge component that I'm a huge advocate for, as I know you are, is accountability. So my whole coaching philosophy really revolves around three core principles: absolute clarity, clarity of where we are, clarity of where we want to go, taking intelligent action. What's intelligent action? Action that's aligned with your values and your goals. And then having active accountability. Active accountability comes in the form of having ways of tracking. I know since working with you, a simple thing of every single day weighing myself. it's a form of accountability.
Yeah.
Taking photos of my food, it's a form of accountability. So we do the same using a North Star trajectory update. So traffic lighting, essentially, green if you set goals for the month, green if we've achieved them, amber if they're in progress, red if we haven't started. But getting people to do that every week. So every week you track your progress on the month. At the end of the month, you track your progress on the quarter. On the quarter, update it on the year. And then that way we can make the appropriate adjustments that we need to make.
And where do they share that?
Forward. So we have a resource called a North Star Trajectory. So they share it with their coach, essentially. Yeah. And that's who's tracking it.
Yeah, and I know you're big on community. I can't have you on this podcast without talking about community, because I see you do events by the bucket load, and you've been around some very influential figures and learnt from them, mentored by them, been to events, Tony Robbins, DeMartini, great friends with Daniel Priestley, of course, too. So you are fully aware of the importance of having great mentors and being connected to great peer groups. How important has your community been in terms of shifting people's North Star thinking and just behaviours as a whole?
So I believe in the world of coaching, no one ever wants a coach. No one ever wants coaching.
Why?
What they want is an outcome.
Yeah.
Now, why do I choose the coach? Is because I believe that coach can get me the outcome that I want within the time frame that I desire, in a way that is somewhat affordable for me, and I'm somewhat aligned to their values or their methodology. So that's all well and good. But that's then the content piece. They might have information. So I get information. So generally speaking, what we're looking for is missing information. I know where I want to go, and some people don't know where they want to go, and you help them with that. But I even then, if people don't know where they want to go, the missing information is how to identify where they want to go, right? So I class that as content. So people come for content. They then get the coaching, which is overcoming the limiting beliefs and navigating the tactical components, building the strategy.
Blah, blah, blah.
Exactly, But then they stay for community. Now, the people that I generally work with are striving for, and in an area of business, I predominantly work with entrepreneurs and business owners, but they're striving. Now, what happens is that the more quote unquote successful you become, the lonelier it becomes. I personally grew up playing rugby, grew up playing ice hockey. I've got lots of friends, but they're just not all on my wavelength when it comes to my drive and ambition, but also having to deal with the challenges that comes with operating a business at a high level, because there's some really dark moments. There can be some really hard times, and having that community of people that you can share the highs with who get it, that can share the lows with and get it, but also be able to help solve that. So I believe that any problem that anyone ever has is simply an unasked or unanswered question. So that's all well and good, but if you just go and ask your old mate down the pub, they're not necessarily going to have the answer. Whereas if you've got people, the amount of things that I've had solved like that for people, because I've been able to connect them with the right person, and instantaneously it's dealt with. So that's where I think community really becomes a part. There's an element of raising standards, which I know you're huge on, and having an element of accountability there. But I believe in having what I call the ultimate peer group. Well, what's the ultimate peer group? The ultimate peer group has mentors, people that are a few steps ahead of you. It has peers, people that are at your level, that are there for a bit of healthy competition. You know, when you were playing football or in sport, you're constantly battling with your rival to get that place on the first team.
Keep on your toes.
Exactly, right? So it's healthy competition.
Absolutely. Stop getting complacent.
Exactly. And then you've got mentees that are people that are a few steps behind you that you can share a nugget or two of wisdom with to help them along the way. That for me is the ultimate peer group. But most people associate mentors and mentees in the world of business, but that isn't the case. It could be in in health, in fitness, it could be in relationships, talking about how people are navigating the challenges of relationship. We've both got young ones. I think yours was just one the other day, mine's 6 months. Yeah. So how they navigate those elements and deal with those components and just getting those tiny little nuggets of wisdom. I think you can have the bricks, but what community has the ability to, or the right community has the ability to do, is be the mortar around that.
Yeah.
I've just done a ski trip. We had 30 people that have gone skiing, and it's the little conversations over breakfast, on the ski lifts, before dinner, there where people are picking up those real golden nuggets that become invaluable.
Especially in business leaders and entrepreneurs, because a lot of the time they're the leaders, they're the key decision makers, but they don't have anyone else to soundboard to, and it's exhausting. A couple of questions. I'm conscious of time, Will, but I have to ask these questions. You've worked with a lot of very successful people. People have made $1 million or $2 million and then up to silly money. And you've seen people who have been unfulfilled and then very fulfilled whilst making that money. If you were to narrow down 3 traits or principles these type of people live with, what would you say they are?
So the ones that have been...
that made the money, and whether it's through working with you and or other people alongside working with you, that you just feel, God, they feel so much more content.
Yeah. So to give some context, I think this would be helpful. So I run a community that has over £1 billion worth of annual turnover combined. Just the clients that I personally coach now have somewhere in the region of between 3 and 400 million pound combined turnover.
Yep.
But then I've had the extreme where I've had a client that sold his business for over 300 million pounds, right? So I've seen a fair bit of it. The ones that have got the most contentment are living a North Star. They've got a mission they're pursuing without thinking when I get there. They also acknowledge their progress. They're reflecting back and seeing how far they've come. They're living their values, not somebody else's values. Would be some of the ones that come to mind. And then a big one that actually I think that a lot of people don't do because they don't feel they can. Maybe it's because of ego. Or maybe they just haven't found the right person to talk to, is they share their challenges in a constructive way. What do I mean by that? There's a lot of people in the world of mental health that will say, just talk about your problems. Talk about your problems. Just share what's going on. A problem shared is a problem halved. Sometimes that is okay, but what I'm big on is, well, if a negative emotion is a signal to think or act differently, what's the action, what's the activity, either thinking or acting, that is going to ensure that doesn't stay chronic and doesn't last? And I think the big one is that the people that are really progressing and really moving forward, when they hit a wall, they'll share that with someone that can help them overcome it.
So they don't suppress, they express and communicate.
Yeah.
Okay.
But with the view that they're actually going to progress and move forward, rather than just saying
just talking
for the
sake of it.
Talking for the sake of it,
I
exactly.
couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more, because I think the problem with doing that is, if you're just talking for the sake of talking, you're opening up a wound that is never going to be solved, and then the story of talking about that problem becomes a bigger problem than what it needs to be.
Because then you get caught in the trap of, I'm just going to talk about my story. I'm talking about, hold on a minute, I'm talking about it. Everyone's telling me to do the thing that I said, which is talk about it, but I haven't actually moved forward. So we go, how do we heal our past?
Yeah.
And a lot of people, I love the saying, I'm going to butcher this now, so I want to try and get it right, which is, no, it's gone. But it's something around heal your past to be able to properly step forward into your future. And what do we mean by heal our past? So people say that time's a healer. I completely disagree. Time isn't the healer. What happens is that if people have had stuff go on, uppercase T trauma and lowercase t trauma. You, at the age of whatever it was, and choosing to getting released from Coventry and all those things, in that moment was your experience of trauma. My situation, my dad, when I was young, my lowercase form of trauma. It's not the month, the year, the decade that it takes to heal. Is what happens is it takes most people the year, the decade, whatever it might be, to gain the perspective. Because how many of us have had a situation that's happened that then we reflect back on months later, years later, decades later, and go, actually, that moment was the best thing that ever happened to us. But most people lack the strategic intervention, they lack the questions that enable them to gain the perspective in a shorter period of time, and that's where the magic can happen. So, yeah, in answer to your question, I think that part there is when they hit the challenge, they haven't got an outlet that is going to enable them to be able to talk about it and overcome it with some tactical ways or strategic ways to be able to move forward towards where they want to be going and how they want to be living their life.
Cool. Last couple of questions. I'm conscious of time. Have your values shifted at all since becoming a dad? Or has anything changed that you didn't think would change, whether it's internally, externally, or in terms of your values hierarchy?
So, yes is the short answer. What I will say, and we were talking about this before we went live, some people say, the moment I held my child, everything new, I never knew love quite like it. And I personally didn't experience that real profound moment. We had a bit of a complicated start. We spent 9 days in intensive care, and that was 6 days after he'd come out of hospital. I'm giving my son mouth-to-mouth resuscitation when he's not breathing. He's going blue on the living room floor on day 6 of being born. Did that have an impact? Yeah, it did. Did it mean that there are priorities that I have shifted and values that have shifted? Yeah, I think that I would be lying if I said no. I think that maybe, just maybe, because of so much of what people had said that it was going to be like, it's maybe not quite met that expectation. But one thing I can say at 6 months old now is that as each week goes by, he's getting more of a personality. He's really recognising who I am. So feeling that level of, I think, what it really feels like to be a dad, I'm learning more now than I did in the 6 months prior.
Yeah. And then what is your North Star now?
To empower people to transform excuses into results and live a life they love by unlocking their next level of potential, performance and purpose.
And why is that so important to you?
Because I believe that when you achieve your full potential, not only does it benefit you, but it benefits your family, your friends, your community, society, humanity, the universe. That's the ripple effect that you're able to have when you do that. And when you're pursuing that, that being your North Star, when you're pursuing something that's meaningful, that you care about, you grow as a person and you can inspire others and you have an impact on others. I've looked up to a lot of people in my life. I've had the pleasure of meeting some of my heroes and becoming great friends with some of my heroes. And what I've realised is that the people that I find most inspiring are always the ones that are most inspired.
Brilliant. Where can people find you, Will, get the book, find out about your services, all that type of stuff?
So easiest place to connect is via my website, willpolston.com. You can access all my socials, my podcast, North Star Conversations, which I've had a great guest on recently called Kirk Miller, if you know the guy. Fantastic episode. So, yeah, we've got that. Find out about various programs, the book. Easiest place, actually, probably to get it is Amazon, but you can get it in Waterstones and various other places.
You do all your events and stuff too, don't you? How often do you do your events, by the way? They seem to come thick and fast.
A lot, yeah. So I think we do about in-person events. I think we do about 40 a year.
That's insane.
Yeah. So somebody said to me the other day, said, "Well, we put on a charity event. we had this
just on that, mate, because I think it's such a nice touch. How much did you raise either day on that?
£72,000 net. But can I talk about this, because I think it's important, because it links in with community just quickly. So what happened was, I went to watch my old ice hockey team playing, and I was up in the balcony watching the game, and then someone's come round the old shaky bucket. Everyone's chucking their coins in. I said, what you raising money for? And they said, it's for Bailey's kid. Now, Bailey was my old teammate. I went, he's got a kid? I didn't even know he had a kid. So I dropped him a message afterwards, said, you're raising money for your kid, what's it for? I said, it's for physio. I said, well, what's the physio for? She said, well, she's a few years old now, she can't walk already. I went, okay, now how my mind works is, well, how could she work? How could she walk? She can't walk, she's a few years old, what could we do? She said, well, look, I don't really know much, speak to my daughter's mum. So I spoke to the daughter's mum, said, so what's going on? She's got a rare genetic disease. And I said, well, can she walk? They said, yeah, well, with the physio we're raising money for, we think it could be about 5 years and she'd be able to walk. And I went, okay. Could it happen any faster? And they said, well, potentially. Apparently there's this treatment, but we've never looked into it because we know we can't afford it. So I said, well, can you go and just find out how much it is? Yeah. So she comes back and she says, well, look, I found out, but look, I knew it was really expensive. It is really expensive. It's 18.5 grand and it's in Toronto in Canada. I went, okay. So I sat back and I thought, do you know what I would love to be able to do is just send them 18.5 grand. I'd love to do that. At the time I wasn't in a position to be able to just ping them the money, but I thought, what can I do? Yeah. And I thought to myself, I've got a community. Yeah. I've got people around me. So I reached out to a mate of mine that owns a wedding venue and said, I want to put on a charity event. Can we put it on? He said, yeah, no problem. You can have the venue. And then I said to another mate of mine that has a charity, I said, look, there's this little girl, he's got a children's charity, this little girl, if I raise the money through your charity, can we give a chunk to her, and anything extra we go to your charity? He said, yeah, no problem. 6 weeks later, we put on this event. We raised £25,000, our first charity event.
Amazing.
Making that phone call, I was crying my eyes out. They couldn't believe that we'd raised the money. But it didn't end there. 6 months later, I get sent a video. For the first time in her life, I think at this point she's 4 years old. Yeah. For the first time in her life, she's walking.
Oh, bless.
6 months after we raised the money, she's been told it might be 5 years we raised the money. Why do I share that? Is because there are times in our life when there's things that we want to do that we may not have the resources to be able to do. There's no such thing as lack of resources, just a lack of resourcefulness. There's always a way. We can always find a way. And there might be something right now that you can't do directly, but you can do indirectly. And as a result of that now, we've now raised, we just had our 5th event, we've raised over £240,000 net for the children's charity now. Yeah. And that for me is just an example of when you're doing something that wants to make a difference, when you combine your community or your resources in whichever way you've got them, you can make a big impact.
It brought a tear to my eye, mate. I'm a dad to a little girl, so what a beautiful way to end, mate. And it's incredible what you're doing, Will. And just even on the back of that, I would love in some way, even with our community and Built to Last, to do great things together with what you guys are doing to make a difference the way you just shared. So please check Will out. I really appreciate your time today, and we'll definitely do this again, my friend.
Thank you.